to the Suwannee County Board of County Commissioners meeting of July 6, 2021 at 5 p.m. If everyone would please stand at this time, Commissioner Fleming is going to offer our invocation and our pledge.
Let us pray. Our Father, we come again in your name, and our Father, we thank you for all your blessings that you bestowed upon us. We thank you for our last night sleeping and this morning early rising, was not in judgment. And our Father, when we rose, the blood was still running warm in the veins. And Father, we had the activity and use of our limbs. We want to thank you. We pray that you bless us this day. Thank you for our meeting this morning. And we pray, God, that you give us wisdom and knowledge and understanding. Give us strength. Keep us safe, oh Father. Pray that you watch over us during the time of the storm. And thank you for the preparation. We pray, oh God, that you turn the storm, calm the storm, give us peace, give us a peace of mind. Bless us in our business today. Give us strength. Look on our members. Look on our community. Father, we need you. We love you. Father, we ask these blessings. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we'll move in our first order of business. It is approval of minutes from our June 15th, June 23rd, and June 25th, 2021 meetings. Do I have any questions or comments, or do I have a motion to approve?
Mr. Chairman, I offer motion to approve.
I have a motion by Commissioner Fleming,
Second.
second by Commissioner Hale. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. This time, moving ahead to the consent agenda, I'm pulling item number 5 for some comment by our county attorney. Do I have any other items, questions, or comments on? Hearing none, I will ask for a motion for items 2 through 4 and 6 through 19.
Chairman, I offer a motion, please.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hale,
Second.
second by Commissioner White. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. This time, Mr. Pravat.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item number 5 is to do our regular renewal that we've been doing for the local state of emergency. I asked you to look at it and consider it separately today because, as we've talked, we've been renewing it because there was some question about whether or not, funding would be available if we did not have a local state of emergency in place. The governor's order is now expired, and there was clarification given that in the American Rescue Act, you did not have to have a local state of emergency to be able to receive the funds. So I wanted you to have that additional information, to consider as to whether or not you want to renew it going forward.
Gentlemen, have any comments?
No, sir. I would just ask the board and Mr. Pravat if there was a need for us to continue to renew it. If the governor's and the American Rescue Plan doesn't require it, what's the need?
If there's other considerations out in the community, that you need to keep it in force because of COVID effects still happening out there that are extraordinary, you could keep it. But otherwise, we're moving on back to business.
Yeah, I think we all recognize the effects that it's causing on the community, but as far as business goes and the requirement by the feds or the state, I don't know why we need to continue to do it. I recognize the impact it's taking on the community, health-wise, but as far as business-wise, can we?
I'm fine with removing it, gentlemen.
I'm fine.
Any thoughts?
Okay, the idea is that you either take action to renew it or the other one just expires on its own.
So
So we just let it expire on its own?
do we need to do this one that we have in front of us?
No, sir. That's why I did it separately.
Okay.
This one is to renew it for another 7 days. If you don't renew it,
It expires.
it just expires on its own.
So we're fine not renewing it.
Yeah, I think through the state of Florida, we're perfectly fine with that.
Fair enough. Thank you, Mr. Pravat.
Thank you.
Mr. Pravat, while I got you, Could you go ahead and address item 21?
Yes, sir.
I'm just, so people, if they have the agenda, I'm changing a couple things around that we can kind of get through, and then it won't take us but just a minute.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman and board members, this has to do with the opioid litigation. We had hired outside counsel to handle all of this for us. At the last time I talked to you, we had, there were several of those larger litigations that are settling. And as part of the settlement, the state becomes part of those settlements. We, as in litigating counties and other municipalities, have been negotiating with the state over the percentages of the money for whatever the settlement may be. There is not a specific number in any of it, coming down right now. It's just been addressing percentages. We have been negotiating with the AGO's office and, the Attorney General's office. And if you recall, the last time I was up here, we had an initial draft, and there were some tweaks that we need to make to it. We made some small tweaks, to that one, but then others wanted more tweaks. So the Attorney General said that after we made those last tweaks, the first set of tweaks, a number of counties went ahead and signed it and sent it in as part of the agreement. So the Attorney General has said, well, we're not going to do any more, tweaking to it until the monies start coming in, and then we can argue some more about it later. So what I'm asking you to approve here today is that first revised agreement with the first set of tweaks, not the second set of tweaks, moving forward. I ask you, and our counsel, outside counsel, is recommending that we, go ahead with this. Again, the amount of monies are unknown at this point. We're talking about percentages only, and percentages in categories based upon, size of county, population size of county, and other services that are rendered in the county as the percentages go down. The agreement has those percentages attached as part of Exhibit A, and Exhibit B are the core services that you will be allowed to be able to use those monies whenever they come in, so at this point.
Okay.
So that's what I'm asking. Thank you.
So do you need that in the form of a motion?
Yes, sir.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
Yes, sir. I would move that we authorize and execute that.
I have a motion by Commissioner Land,
Second.
second by Commissioner Hale. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. One more thing before I get to Mr. Baker, if you're fine. I want to bring up Mr. Meeks, get his item real quick. Welcome, sir.
Mr. Chairman, board members. The item that you have before you tonight is a preliminary and final plat approval of Oak-Hammock subdivision as a minor subdivision located in Suwannee County. Location of the subdivisions in Section 4, Township 5 South, Range 13 East, located at the intersection of 208th Street and 129th Road. Property is a 15.03 acre parcel located in an agricultural 1 zoning district. The proposed subdivision has a total of 3 lots, and they would front existing road frontages, and those lot sizes are 5.01 acres in size. We had them place a note on the plat regarding lots 1 and 2 will have a shared driveway access that will come off of 208th Street, and lot 3, which is actually the one that's located at the direct intersection of 129th Road and 208th Street, would have a limited access with a choice of the western 75-foot along 208th Street or the northern 330-foot off of 129th Road. This would limit the access, the driveway access at the close proximity of the intersections, try to ease in traffic flow, make sure we don't have congestion there at that intersection or people stopping to turn into driveways. Plat's been prepared by a licensed land surveyor. It's been reviewed for compliance with Chapter 177. We have the plat here tonight for the chairman's signature if the board so chooses to approve subdivision plat. The property owner, Mr. DePrater, is present if anybody has any questions of him regarding the subdivision.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, one thing Mr. Meeks didn't express, this is a preliminary and final plat because it's a minor subdivision. You do it all in one proceeding instead of having the two-stage process.
Fair enough. Have any questions for Mr. Meeks or the owner?
I don't.
Seeing none. We're good? Well,
But just have to make a motion to approve.
I'd move that we approve the plat, preliminary and final plat. I mean,
I have a motion by Commissioner Land,
Second.
second by Commissioner Hale. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Meeks.
Mhm.
At this time, I would, item number 20, Mr. Baker. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. It's all right, Mr. Chairman. It's a thing that we need to do, tonight is set the proposed millage rate for the upcoming fiscal year, 21-22 fiscal year. If you look at the proposed tax revenue chart that I asked Eric to take and prepare and put in your packet, it'll look like this, so that you can, it'll look like this.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If you look at the proposed tax revenue chart for this year, you will see that each mill is expected to generate approximately $1,993,677. Your gross taxable value this year is $1,993,677,284. It's where it will, and your current rollback rate is at 9.0675 mils. It's the last several years you have set your rate at 9.0000 mils. I would like to go, it's where we have two new commissioners and also some new people in the audience. It's where I would like to explain the rollback rate if I could. It's the rollback rate is the rate that would generate the same amount of property tax revenues as approved for the prior year, less allowances for new construction, additions, deletions, annexations, and improvements. It's where these are added later. These are added later to give you the final gross taxable value. Once you set the millage rate, once you set the proposed millage rate tonight, you can lower it at any time up until the final budget hearing. But once you set it today, you cannot raise it throughout the budget process. We are required to budget at 95%, and that's why you see those numbers on your paper as well. Is there any questions that you have of me?
Gentlemen, have any questions for Mr. Baker at this time?
I do not, no, sir.
No, sir.
If that is the case, I'll need y'all to give me a proposed millage rate.
I don't have a problem leaving it where it's at.
I'm good with leaving it at 9 as well.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to stay where it's at.
I have that in the form of a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hale.
I'll second.
Have a second by Commissioner Land. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
It's where that ordinarily we would take and set the dates for our tentative and final budget hearing. There's an order that it has to go through, and so we're having to wait on the school board to give us the dates that they have, because we follow behind them, and then the city of Live Oak will fall behind them, or it's whether they will fall behind us. So it's where we'll have those set at the next meeting.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. At this time, we will move to item number 22.
Mr. Chairman, before we move away from that millage rate thing, I'd like to make a motion that we use 8.75 mils for budgeting purposes.
8.75 for what?
Budgeting purposes instead of the full 9 mils, and put the rest in contingency.
I'd second that.
We could, Mr.
Yep.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I don't have a problem with that. I don't know, do we do it now, though? We do it during budget time, or?
You typically do it at the end when you've reconciled everything that you've got to deal with, and then the board has typically, you can do it any way you want to, but traditionally what you do is you make a determination after you've gone through everyone's budgets and made a decision, because they're typically looking at what's left. And as Mr. Baker said, whatever you do, you can only budget at 95% regardless.
That's correct.
So you can try to do it now. I don't have any idea what that's going to look like later, but if you do it later, you'll do it from an informed decision.
And that's the only reason I mentioned, because we haven't seen everybody's budgets. That's the only reason
Yeah.
Understand.
I withdraw.
yeah.
Fair enough, so we'll,
As a point of order, Mr. Chairman, Mr. White, if you can get a consensus, or express the opinion, a consensus across the board, so everybody can be thinking about what a top number you may want to be doing with it, but don't set it at this particular point.
All right.
It would actually require a separate advertised public hearing if you try to set anything associated with your taxes for next year.
I think he was just talking about,
But you'll
Mr. Chairman.
also,
yes, sir.
you'll
Commissioner Lane?
also have an opportunity, though, to, like I said, do it from a much better informed decision later when you've gone through your workshop.
Well, it appears to me that if you set it at that now, then you know how much money you got to deal with.
Well,
I'm going to tell you, you've had things roll in, and, between now and the time that you actually.
But it's not that you can't use the we're talking about $500,000.
It's entirely up to the board.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I would prefer that we do it now, no disrespect to
No, none taken.
Commissioner White. Just the fact that, like Commissioner Hill stated, that, we're doing budget time, we'll see where the numbers come in at, then we can work with that.
And
I understand that, but what I'm saying is if you know what your number is now, then you know what you got to work with.
I don't know, I don't think nobody know.
Well, I get the part, they don't know how much they can spend. Well, I'm wanting to tell them how much they can spend.
Mr. Chairman, I hear what you say, Mr. White. I agree with that. We go into budget workshops and just say, hey, this is what we're working with today, And set it, and just say, we're gonna take that $500,000 and we're gonna put it aside for, contingency or whatever you want it to be at that point.
You're going to have a list of unfunded items. You're going to have your typical stuff in there, your routine, repeat expenses, but then you're going to have a long list. And what we typically do in the second day is entertain the budgets of outside agencies and that list of unfunded items. So right now, the finance department over there, budget, which is working with our budget, all of your department budgets will go in there along with items for requests for additional service or equipment or something else. No one has that single long list until you see it. So today, I couldn't even tell you where we're going to be, but you'll know. And I have seen the contingency higher than that, and I've seen it much lower. So there can be a huge spread there.
Commissioner Lane, you had a comment?
Yes, sir. No disrespect to the board or anyone that may oppose what I'm about to say, but I like Commissioner White's, where his head's at. In my opinion, we know that property values have increased. We're not dealing with final numbers yet, but in the form of staying at 9 mills, we set that tonight. But if we work our numbers off of the 8.75, those dollar figures are more than likely going to be very close, probably higher than what our budget numbers that we worked with were last year. And my way of thinking, kind of like what two things. One, Mr. White said is setting the number now so we know what we have to work with. As far as budget workshop goes, the 8.75, which would leave us $500,000. If we stayed to that, we would have $500,000 to put in reserves. We do have a lot of unanticipated revenue sitting there to maybe catch some of those unfunded projects if they qualify. And then, during the COVID pandemic and the hardships that taxpayers across the country, across the world faced, we didn't specifically do anything with CARES funding here as a board, but if we can work our budget off of that 8.75 and it stick, I mean, that's going to be a benefit to every property owner in Suwannee County that they would see financially when their tax bill arrived in the form of a lower savings. And like I say, we're sitting on 2 different federal bills and revenue associated with those. And if we go in looking at it at 8 3/4, we're more likely to come up with some savings in a contingency fund. I mean, I understand what Mr. Commissioner Fleming's saying. I get it. I understand. I just like to see us pull the belt tight as a board, as we have asked by necessity every family in this country to do due to COVID.
Well, the reason why I've sit here, for 11 years, and I've, basically, how it worked, but this was the first. Well, and it's probably a good idea. Sometimes change is good, it's necessary, great. And we were talking about earlier. I put a little humor in there. We were talking about football. Commissioner White showed me that he was a middle linebacker. I call him a middle linebacker. He showed me because he busted right down the middle. But I don't, however, I think it would be best if we do it during the budget workshop.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I don't know if y'all understand where I'm going with this. I don't want to set the millage rate at 8.75. I just want the department heads to use that number when we're doing budgeting. That's what I'm asking for.
But they don't. That's what I'm trying
It
to say.
doesn't change their wish list.
There's a
if you will.
central location that all that data is going to come together, and it isn't together yet. So each department is working on their budget. They're not working on 9 mills or 8.75. They're working on their budget. Once you get that large book, then everyone will have a clearer picture, including your department heads, on how that reconciles with 8.75 or 9. But right now, we don't have a clue how that reconciles because those tabulations haven't been put together in that book yet. Everyone just has their little piece of the picture right now.
I don't have a problem agreeing with both of you gentlemen. I mean, we can go in there. I mean, you've opened the conversation to, let's try to work that way. I don't have a problem with trying to do that. The only thing you will find out is when you get in there, those workshops get very uncomfortable.
I'm
because
sure.
Everybody needs their piece.
Mr. Baker.
So that's,
And I agree, and Mr. Chairman, we'll just have to work with
Well,
each department.
I
We'll
just want
have
you to
work.
know I'm uneducated to this whole thing, so folks out there,
no, you're about saving money. There's nothing wrong
that's
with that.
what I like to do, and that's how I run my business, is I'm looking at a set figure, and that's what I'm spending by, and that's what I use. And that's why I'm asking for the lower number to be used, which I understand where Randy's coming from. They're compiling all this together, but I guess I'm not used to doing it this way, but how do you know where to start?
Well, you start with what you had the prior year, and then you take the minimum, which is going to be whatever the increases are in health insurance, et cetera.
Yeah.
That's what starts it all.
It's a lot of stuff.
We actually have sheets, and you're asking excellent questions, by the way. But we actually have sheets where if you have departments that are requesting a new piece of equipment or a different piece of equipment, you've got a separate form for that has to be turned in with their budget. Or personnel, they want another employee. They've got a separate form they have to turn in. It's attached separately. That isn't built into that request in the budget. It's sent in as a separate form, and all of the commissioners will get a couple of pages of items. Some will be equipment, some will be additional personnel, and they're unfunded. All of those are unfunded. So you start with what you currently have funded, and you take your minimum increases that are necessary because of insurance or whatever else, workers' comp. And then you take anything additional, and those are submitted separately, and the board makes a decision. Typically, it's on the second day after you've finished everyone's budget. You then stop and you go through that and you make a decision. And last year, I'll give you an example. Because of COVID, we had this long list that no one had until it went through and it was all assembled over at the finance department. Well, thankfully, I had the COVID virus last year, so I was able to sit there and go through that long list of unfunded items. And I was able to work through it and just propose that we take a lot of those things out and wait to consider those in the next year, which is going to be now. And you may just, go through there and just cut a bunch of, typically you would cut a bunch of those things out, or you'd say, we're going to postpone this, or we're going to fund this over a 3-year time frame. Any number of ways that you want to deal with an issue, or you may just throw it out. But at that point, you've got all of the numbers and the information in front of you where you can make those decisions.
I'll leave the motion stand, y'all can do what you want to. How about that?
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I can, I agree with both. I mean, I think proposed just to work within that budget. I think Mr. Land is saying maybe roll it back, and we have till when, Mr. Baker, to make.
No, I'm saying stay at 9, but use it,
Okay,
no, I don't
I
want to
thought you-
change
We
We don't
nothing
want to change the
permanently. I just
9
say,
mills. I'm not asking to change the 9 mills.
Okay.
I just want to be clear on that.
Okay.
I just want to try to cut $500,000 out
yeah.
and put in a contingency line. for
It's
other
already
things.
down 127,000 based on what was in the property appraiser's data. So you're down
But
127.
that's at 95%.
Yeah, but you're still less than what you were,
I understand.
starting out less.
I guess.
Yeah, but I don't think that includes utilities because they always come in late. So once those come in, the number's going to be higher. And I don't know about these department heads, but I know about my kids, and every Christmas, they never ask for less. That's why I'm saying, as a parent, as a board, let's say, all right, we're spending X. That's it. Whether you get it or not, this is it. That's kind of
Well,
what I
that's
was
just
at.
how I'm used to doing things. If it don't work for y'all, y'all can vote against it, however you want to do it.
Well, I just got to be clear on if we're entertaining a motion here, and if there's a motion to entertain, and then I got it, and what exactly that motion is.
Or can we do it as a consensus?
I think
Mr.
that's
Attorney?
what he was asking.
I think,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're not setting the millage.
That's
You just
correct.
did that.
Yeah.
Yes,
If you were to go and make a final decision on the millage, you really can't do that.
understood.
anyway.
That's correct.
You gotta wait. But as a consensus among y'all, you hear what's, going around there. You can get it as a consensus so that, everybody will be knowing to look at that. But otherwise, you've had your discussion where you want to be, what you, it's neither here nor there.
Well, in that case, I'll withdraw the motion and ask for a consensus.
I'll agree.
I would agree. So
I
we'll try to
think you
work
got
with
a
that.
full board consensus of trying to do what we can to be at 8 3/4.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner White.
Mr. Chairman, let me just say, it's still going to be up to the board to make those ultimate decisions, because no one's going to have that information and time to go back and make changes. So I think you'll end up dealing with it at the workshops anyway.
I just want that number there. I just want them to work towards that number. That's what I want. I know they don't, you say they don't know.
I think their budget's already done. That's my point, though. See, their budgets are finished, and they've already been sent over to finance.
Understood.
So when they're assembled, because they don't know, Parks Department doesn't know what the sheriff's budget is, or what anyone else's budgets are. So those all have to be put together in a document where everyone will know about the same time where it is. And then, that's why I say you're probably going to be dealing with it in the workshop anyway. I don't envision adjustments in all those budgets prior to the time that it would occur right here with the commissioners.
So it's probably a moot point anyway then.
Well, you're going to have, and it's a learning process as it is for all of us, but you're going to have the opportunity, they're going to come to the podium, and I'll use the sheriff, for example. He'll bring a big packet up there. And you'll get the opportunity to do a little negotiating, or try to. So, but he's been very kind. We've got along good the last couple of years. He's done well. But that's what I'm saying. I mean, you can look at different things and say, hey, this seems a little out of line or a little too strong. Can we do a little something here? And that's how you kind of, work on those numbers. And that's what I'm saying, every department's fighting for their piece, but
Well, I just don't want anybody to think that I'm up here to not fund what's necessary. I want to do that, but at the same time, I want to cut it where I can, and I want to try to save some money.
Yeah, I mean, I think I understand what Mr. Harris is saying, but I also, I like where Mr. Commissioner White's mind's at is if in our minds, if we ask finance to tell us the checkbooks at 8.75, we know the department heads are going to be, that doesn't really affect, in their eyes, it doesn't affect what they set their budget for because they're just asking. It's their wish list. They have some necessary payroll, insurance. I mean, I gotta have this X, Y, Z, or X, Y, but when they bring us their budget, there's a wish list there, whether it's big or small. There's some items in there that are maybe necessary, maybe not necessary. But in our minds, if we ask finance to tell us 8.75, that's it. When it's gone, it's over, and the rest of it, then you are going to be dipping into what y'all kind of agreed as a consensus to use as set aside as a contingency. And maybe some of these 2 federal bills can help catch some of those wish list programs and not affect the actual budget revenue.
well, I understand about the money from the different programs with the government, but I mean, that's just short-term fix. I mean, we still got to,
I
we
understand.
try to get in a repetition where, every year, I mean, that's only going to take the slack up for one little bit. But I understand what you're saying. I don't have a problem in the world trying to save money.
Well, long-term, I was thinking also, we gotta, and Commissioner Fleming and Commissioner White was there too, but Commissioner Fleming and I attended the minimum wage workshop down at FAC last week. And in my mind, if we can pull our belts tight, sitting on some two federal bills, if we can figure out how to get down to 8 3/4 meals and save some, that's some revenue that we can use to help get to where we're going to have to start getting at pretty quick to that $15 an hour minimum wage, and would give us a potentially $500,000. It might only be $300,000, but it's a $300,000 step toward some payroll issues that we know are coming that we got to work through and try to find the revenue to get there. Long term, that's kind of where I was.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I'll just add to the new commissioner, because it wasn't too long ago I was new, and when you get that budget book and you start looking at it, to all fairness to these department heads, what you'll see is once they get up here, they'll start telling you the things they can do without.
Right.
And then them numbers become a little more real at that point, so,
I'm just shooting for a goal.
right.
We may get there, we may not.
Well, I mean,
Well, I wanted to say that out loud, so they come up here during budget time and start.
You setting the tone.
Yeah.
so you have a consensus, Commissioner
Thank you.
White. I
Yes,
think
sir.
we're all on the same page there.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Baker. At this time, we will move to item number 22. Mr. Powell, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Chairman, I asked Mr. Powell to come to the meeting because there was some discussion in your last meeting regarding the agreement that we finally entered with True Leave. And Mr. Baker had commented that he hadn't had a opportunity to talk to Mr. Powell yet. So I know there was a correspondence that went out, but I asked Mr. Powell just to come and just speak to the issue of whether or not the board can use the funds that were associated with that agreement in the way that it was intended in the agreement, which is to fund utilities.
Welcome, Mr. Powell.
Okay, great. As Mr. Harris said, Mr. Baker called me and asked me if I would read the letter of agreement with True Leave, if I would do necessary research, speak with the county attorney, and then give him what information I came up with. I did those steps, and generally, and I'm an auditor, I'm not a lawyer, y'all know that, but auditing governments involves a lot of law. Especially a constitutional county, of which Suwannee County is, can basically only do what is authorized in the law, generally Florida statute. So I looked for the appropriate law, and the appropriate statute is Section 125045 Florida statutes. And when you read that, it gives Board of County Commissioners extensive, very sufficient, very extensive powers in economic development. And I concluded from reading it that it would be, and it says exactly, it's a public purpose if a county issued debt to extend utilities to potential business or an existing one. It is all right to buy land and give it to the companies, and I've had some experience in each of those. And so the terms of the agreement, under the terms, the county is extending utilities to a property for economic development, which is completely proper. And it's proper if you were doing it totally at county expense or with the grant or with other funds. And your issue is other funds. And so basically, in order, from my reading, and I was not involved and should not have been involved in any way in negotiating the agreement, but for expediency and to get the project done, the county is receiving a payment from TrueLeave, $750,000, to provide cash funding to extend the utilities. You could have applied for grants, you could have gotten a bank loan, done RFPs and everything, but all of that would have taken much time, and a conventional loan would have had an interest rate component that you would pay. Also, you would use up some of your pledgeable, I call it a pledgeable revenue. A government generally can't pledge the project assets, but has to pledge a stream of revenue. So under this issue, if that were a loan, it were classified as a loan, the county would incur interest expense and would also use up some of its bonding or debt issuance capacity. So and again, I'll say from my reading and from my experience, even if you were doing that strictly at taxpayer expense, it is not wrong, it's not illegal, it's clearly authorized by Florida statutes. And the fact that you are rebating the payment over 10 years is not illegal, because you own the utilities, you can hook up other customers, you're charging the customer at whatever rate arrangement you have. And so I did not see anything illegal about the project or the agreement, terms of the agreement. And while you never know about the pros and cons of economic development, it is clearly a function of county government. And the taxpayers, your budget process, your future bonding that you might need is clearly benefited, because you're not pledging any revenue, you don't have a loan payment that you have to budget for each month or year, and just from my experience, you are not giving tax abatement to the business concern, which I've seen instances completely legal and everyone was happy with, where a county purchased land, provided utilities, did wetlands mitigation, gave tax abatement, and everyone was very happy. And you don't have any of those issues on the taxpayer. So But from my research and general experience, that's basically what I found.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. Do I have any questions from the board for Mr. Powell this time?
I just want to say thanks.
Seeing none, we appreciate you, sir, for your comments.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to have Mr. Jimmy Norris come up.
Three minutes or 30?
We'll try to keep him under 3. He's got a pretty thick folder with him, though.
I'll take the over-under on 30.
Yes, sir.
Welcome, Mr. Norris.
Good afternoon.
I wanted to just expand a little bit on the conversation that we had at our last meeting with True Leave. I mean, I understand there's a lot of unknowns for the community, concerns. People's reached out. I've had people reach out to me. I'm sure all the commissioners have to some extent. But I just feel like that we need to carry the conversation further, try to have a little more clarity. And then also, if we have anyone from the community this evening that has a question, can I get a raise of hands if I have anybody that wants to comment on this True Leave? Okay. Okay, I got 2, 3. Okay. So we're gonna talk a little bit about it, and then we'll give you folks the opportunity to speak. But anyway,
3 minutes?
sir?
3 minutes?
3.
And counting.
Big project to do in 3 minutes, sir. I mean, you want me to go all the way back and kind of talk about from how we got started on it, or where we are, or just the highlights?
Just give us kind of the highlights, and that's gonna open some questions.
Okay. True Leaf obviously is a publicly traded company. Recently in Florida Trend magazine, just received last week, they were ranked the top 350 businesses in Florida, and they were ranked number 78. So they're legitimate, legal licensed business in the state of Florida. Obviously, they're a cannabis company that the voters of Florida voted to make legal several years ago. So they have been looking at expanding in the I-10 corridor. They already have some facilities over in Jefferson County and Madison County, and they had narrowed it down to 3 counties here locally, us, Suwannee County being one of them. So when they first came to town, they actually reached out to Suwannee Valley Electric, to be honest with you, because, you know, they need a lot of power. So they had to get Suwannee Valley Electric on board with helping identify property that was, it's kind of like a solar farm. They needed a piece of property, but they also needed a big transmission line. So the power consumption is tremendous on these facilities. Everything is completely indoors. It's all, for you guys that know, it's a red iron steel building, kind of like the structure we are in here. Completely enclosed buildings, and so they put lights inside and air conditioners and everything. So when you go by, it looks just like a industrial building. It would kind of look like this building when you drive by. But Suwannee Valley Electric helped them identify some properties, and just so you know, they reached out to Duke and FPL and others as well in other counties to identify properties, and they did. So as we worked through the conversations, obviously, they asked to meet with commissioners. They wanted to be very upfront and let you guys know what their business was, what they were doing. You guys all know that. Every one of you met with them. Part 2 was, and of course, I don't want to leave you out over there, Mr. Harris, but was they insisted that we go for tours. They did not want a misconception that this was Visqueen and 2x4s and, leaned up. They wanted you to see the real project and what it was and the magnitude of the several hundred construction employees that were out there. And so you all agreed, and we went to different facilities. And also, I don't know, Tim's not here, is he? But Tim joined us, as well as, the building inspector joined us. So, we went and we looked and we touched it and we felt it and we made sure it was real. And we saw the magnitude of those projects. So sitting in my office, as you guys know, we have, Mr. Powell mentioned, the county, we do not have tax abatement like the surrounding counties. So the surrounding counties could tell these guys, we'll give you tax abatement for 5 years or 10 years or whatever that may be. I don't have that tool. I would love to have it back because I lose battles every day. I'm losing one right now because we don't have tax abatement, 100 jobs. But when we sat down, we talked about the grant and reimbursement program that we have in the county. And if we went through with that program, which they are completely qualified for, it would have been several $1 million in tax rebate that they would receive. However, the utility piece that the county's been working on, it kind of came up in conversation now at 75 and 136. As we all know, at that interchange and in that area, the water table's really high. So it was going to make it somewhat difficult to put in the sewer and that kind of thing. And so that was a little bit of an obstacle and very time-consuming in dealing with health department and everything else. So as we started talking and they asked, did we have any thoughts of running the utilities down to the interchange? And I said, of course, we've had thoughts of it. We've talked about it I don't know how many times. I've had business calls about it, but we didn't have the ability to do it. So that's when they kind of made a proposal, and they were like, well, maybe we won't apply for any type of rebate or anything else if you guys would be willing to work with us and try to get utilities down to the interchange. So we started taking that approach. Unfortunately, like you said, it's been tough. Dollars are tough, and we're just not sitting around on money to throw at these projects. So they offered to basically help finance the project. And, that was very appealing. You don't get that option very much. So what that did was give us an avenue to actually bring water and sewer all the way down to the interchange. So now we have a corridor from 10 to 75 that we can go online with business. It also allows us to put hydrants down those lines all the way to the south side of I-10, which should help the folks out there with their ISO rating. And it gives me an opportunity to bring business to town. I can tell you I have a meeting tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock with an engineer that called today that just found out we've got utilities going on the south side of interstate, and will be at my office at 9 o'clock because of it. I had a call from Jacksonville last week from a developer just because we're running utilities down there. So these are all different pieces that weren't even a part of the original project. So actually them helping us deliver the utilities is I don't even know how to explain how beneficial it is for development in Suwannee County. One thing, and I don't know if everybody knows this, they didn't have to do anything. This is no different than growing tobacco or growing corn or growing anything you want. It's an ag industry. They found a piece of property, they identified it. They don't have to pull a permit for anything. They could have went out there and just started doing what they wanted to do. But they didn't do that. They came to us. They've asked us to permit it. They don't have to have a permit, but they literally, that's why it was in the agreement. They ask us, even though we know it's an agricultural facility and we don't have to do this, we would like your building department, your building official to inspect what we're doing to be sure that it's built correctly. Because again, it is big structural buildings, right? So we agreed we would do that. They agreed to pay the building fees for this project, which minimum of $250, probably depending on when they get completed, north of $300,000, they'll be paid the building department. So for that department, that's going to help you guys at budget time. Y'all remember that. Don't take it out of mine because he's going to be getting it. So I just want everyone to know that they didn't have to even come to ask anything from the county, but the utility piece. The utility piece kind of tied us together a little bit, and we then had to kind of start working together. But they didn't even have to do that. So I do want everyone to be sure that they understand that they came to us, and they insisted before you guys, they wanted you to meet with them and take a tour before they would ever bring the project forward. Now, saying all that, I know I push, okay? Y'all made comments the other day. We've got a few months to deliver, and we can't get materials these days. if anybody's in business, you know how difficult it is to get materials. So we had to get materials ordered so that the contractors on site can put the water and sewer lines in the ground, right? Well, that was the big hurdle. We needed to get the agreement in place so that then, once we had the agreement, attorney would keep us out of trouble, then we could take a step back and approve putting utilities in, which then allow us them to write us a check so that we could go order the materials so that we can get the project completed on time. They want to pull permits immediately, and they want to get these facilities opened immediately. One of the problems is where they're currently constructing a development right now, they had to build a substation there as well. Well, that power company is telling them it's going to be a year from now before they can get a substation in over there. So what that's going to mean is that they have to stop construction of the buildings because they won't have enough power to energize the buildings. So when this construction stops, they want to start on our site. Suwannee Valley Electric has basically told them they won't be the holdup because they do this in-house. They build in-house. They build the substation. They're not subcontracting those things out. Suwannee Valley Electric has stepped up to the plate. They absolutely are on board and want them here. It will be by far, I don't know if you guys been to the sawmill or have seen the sawmill out there. They're up and running strong, by the way, and they're fixing to go to their second shift if anybody needs a job. The power consumption will be 4 to 4.5 times what the sawmill is. We'll be building a whole substation out there. Also be upgrading the lines. It will make power in that area.
I think also, there was a little bit of a misconception about folks thought that we had to approve to allow them to go out there and build on the site. We was just entering into an agreement for utilities. And we had been involved with seeing and understanding what they had done and understood the time constraints they was under to get materials because of COVID and how far everyone's backed up. But with them being an agricultural business, we didn't vote to allow them to do it.
No.
Like you had already stated.
Couldn't stop them. You couldn't
Right.
stop
They
them.
can do what they want to
That's
do
right.
on that
That's
part.
right.
So I feel like, I do want that for clarification, that people understand that we wasn't in here trying to ramrod some item through without folks knowing about it. We was trying to do the piece that has to do with water and sewer.
Exactly. We needed the infrastructure because the infrastructure is what's going to hold the project up. Either we deliver on the infrastructure piece or we don't. And we had to get that stuff ordered. And, today's world, you can't get anything. So, but yes, like I said, they could come in here and they could go ahead and do what they want to do without the county at all. If they wanted to go put, their own wells down and their own septic tank in, they wouldn't even have to talk to us. They just go do it.
Right.
So, we appreciate them being upfront. If people could kind of see the site and could get a feel for what they're looking at, if you go by, it's just an industrial park. It's paved roads and buildings, and there is no, noise. There is no sawdust. There is no odor. There is no really anything. It's just kind of a dormant atmosphere. So like you say, the county really wasn't voting to let them in or let them out or anything like that. They are absolutely have every right to be here, and it's, just like any other business.
I had asked Mr. Norris, which I had knew preliminary a few weeks ago, running some numbers. The biggest piece of this that is so important to me is Mr. Norris gave me a piece of paper this evening with a rough estimate. This company estimated square footage is 1,900,000 square feet roughly. The taxes that they will pay to the county a year is estimated. But we're looking at somewhere around $2.5 million a year in tax revenue.
Yeah.
That will make them, if I'm correct, the highest paying taxpayer in the county.
Yes, sir. Hope so.
That will also,
That's right. I know Klausner, from what I was told, Klausner, or
yeah, Klausner was.
I think that's accurate.
And they were like at 2.1 million is what they were paying. And so yeah, by far, this should be the largest tax contributor to the county and the school. And the school.
And that's, the school is number one to me. I'm looking at $1 million a year that's going to our children. Obviously, I'm in politics. Call me a politician, whatever, I'm an elected official. Things get hot in here sometimes. I'm not here to say that they don't. But I will tell you this. Mr. Baker was here the other day. We had a discussion, people watched it, everyone had their own thoughts. My position is, I'm coming from a passion position. I'm passionate about this county, I'm passionate about the schools, I'm passionate about these tax dollars that's going to our schools. That's where it come from for me at the last meeting. So I hope folks understand, when have the opportunity to bring possibly the biggest taxpayer that the county has, and you can bring $1 million to the kids in our schools and $1.5 million to the tax roll, I just, I got to fight the fight, and I don't, you know, those folks are here, and they're looking at, do we want them here, do we not want them here? I have to do, you know, so, anyway, it was from a passion standpoint.
How many jobs are being provided?
In the agreement, we put a minimum of 300 jobs, but I think all you guys know, 300 was what they put minimum in that agreement. We're looking at way more than 300 jobs, and then what you got to look at is when you start multiplying those jobs 6 to 7 times through the community. You know, a big part of it was they wanted to know, can we deliver the employees? I'm going to be honest with you guys, that's tough. I mean, every business owner out here obviously is seeing the struggles right now with employment. The sawmills the same way. So, but yeah, 300 minimum, you know, more than likely by the time. The process, I know I'm talking long, y'all pick on me, but tell me to shut up when you're ready for me to shut up.
Shut up.
I'm winning my bet. I'm winning over here.
The buildings, gosh, I wish I could show it to you guys. We're a 24,000 square foot building.
Your hands need to come a little farther apart.
How big is this building, Mr. Harris?
Yeah. Nowhere near that.
No. So 24,000 square foot. I think, were they 100 by 240 or something? Is that right numbers? I don't know.
Building.
They're really big buildings, okay? You guys have been in them. So they will be sitting there, and each one will be its own independent unit, completely enclosed and secured and all that good stuff. There will be 34, 24,000 square foot buildings. And then the big building,
Yeah, 1 million
Which-
square feet.
which will be 1 million square foot. I don't know, for folks that aren't construction, that's where I come from. I think the paper had it in there at some point. They mentioned 40 acres, and I don't know if people got that. It's not, the site is not 40 acres. That's how much will be under roof,
Yeah, I mean,
under roof.
fit like 3 Walmarts in that one building.
Well, Publix is 46,000 square feet. So divide 46,000 and 1.9 million, and I guess you find out how many Publixes, you know, we're looking at. But, you know, it's going to be a really big project, but again, it's not going to be intrusive. It's going to be kind of a dormant thing. It's very unusual. I can tell you, we were losing the project till the utilities. I never have an ace in the hole because I don't have tax abatement. I don't have money to write a check to do things that don't have anything. The project wasn't, you know, it just didn't look like maybe it was coming our way. But the utility piece is what pulled it together. And thankful for Mr. Harris and whoever else was involved in that grant and getting that money to you know, Dr. Jackson was here before me, to develop that interchange out there. That decision back then kind of got us where we are today. And I promise you, at 9 o'clock in the morning, I meet with somebody else, and, you know, even if we just went out there, and I've been begging you guys to develop that corridor, but now this is, you know, as the ancillary pieces allowed us to do that. So,
I appreciate your comments, Mr. Norris. I may need you to come back up, but right now I'm on just on this subject while we're on it, I'm going to open the floor to public comment. We're going to do things a little different here. But for or against, I want the folks that are here and want to be heard, I want the board to be able to hear from them, and we can have some constructive, positive exchange between us. This gentleman here raised his hand behind Mr. Yes, sir. Please come to the microphone and just state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Dan Adams. My address is 11440 75th Loop,
Welcome, sir.
Live Oak, Florida. I have more of a testimony than anything. When I was 15 years old, I was first introduced to marijuana. By the time 19, I was a pretty regular smoker. I tried to get back to the Lord, but it always, there was something missing, and that was the relationship with God that I was missing. By the time I was in my late 30s, I was smoking very regularly, even medical marijuana. I was getting it from Denver, Colorado. Well, I got back to God, and when I did, I made it a personal choice to pray a lot. And one night, whenever I was in my prayer closet, I got this sick feeling come over me, and I started sweating. I hurt. It was not comfortable. When I wiped my brow to take the sweat away, my hand was sticky. I smelled it, and it was the scent of marijuana that I had quit smoking. I went and took a shower to get it off of me. The soap stuck to me. It was oil over my whole body. It was marijuana oil. I had to go get the Dawn from the kitchen to cut the grease and get it off of me. Now, the Lord says you cannot serve God and mammon. And mammon is money, material wealth, or any entity that promises wealth. So I ask everybody, please reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. At this time, we will move to the next gentleman who wishes to speak. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Just name and address for the record.
Wayne Hanukkah, 11883 93rd Road. I just had a couple comments. I spoke to Mr. Norris after the last meeting because I was like, why the rush? Why didn't we wait till this meeting to make that happen? And I still think that could have happened. I understand shortages of material, but they don't change that much in 2 weeks. So it appeared from the public that you were kind of in a hurry to get that done, and now I understand why. But I think it could have just been handled differently and explained better at that time. Because if their move-in date or our utility supply to them wouldn't have taken effect until we signed the agreement. So if you had had it where it was so many days from this time, from the time of the agreement, you wouldn't be pushed into a date at that point. So now I understand why you're rushing it. And thank you for doing what you did. I just had a couple other questions.
Yes, sir.
I finally got a chance to read the whole agreement. It's pretty long. I'm curious of why that, and even the other agreements that we've done in the past, why we don't ask for a specific percentage of employees from Suwannee County. Yeah, they say they're going to employ 300 people, but we know that 300 people aren't all going to be from our county. So I think we need to think about that in agreements in the future, because we know what happens. Companies come in here and they go, oh, let me bring my friends from here, my friends from there, and then we're not getting any new employees. So just the thought that we should be doing that in all our agreements. I know you're not always going to get somebody else to sign that, but at least if you start with it, then at least we're guaranteed that the people that are working here are going to be from Suwannee County. That's all I had.
Thank you, Mr. Hancock.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I did ask them when we were meeting with them if they were going to employ county residents, and they said it would be from the tri-county area, which when they go to hunting 300 people, I'm quite sure they'll have to hunt all 3 counties to get them right now, but I just wanted to throw that out there. I did ask them that question.
Thank you. Next. Name and address for the record.
Bo Hancock, 6135 Wiggins Road.
Welcome, Mr. Hancock.
This appeared because of the desire on the part of Trulieve, they didn't want the word out until they were ready to, everything was, all the ducks were lined up and ready to go type thing. And I understand the confidentiality and that kind of thing. But there does appear to be a total lack of transparency to the public, the way things are going with this. But I understand there's a certain amount of the confidentiality part of it. But to get, what upset me more than anything else at the last commission meeting was Mr. Staples' comment from the chair towards our clerk of the court. Totally uncalled for. He made the statement that, he wanted clarification, was the clerk trying to stop this project? No, he only heard about it 2 hours before the cotton picking meeting. Commissioner Stapleton, as a new commissioner, for the first few meetings, every time there was something on there, he had a request to hold on because he hadn't had a chance to study it. And if memory serves me right, and I'm going to have to, I can't quote him, but he made the statement at one time to the effect that he just got the agenda on Friday. Now here he is on Tuesday, the following Tuesday, to decide on this issue. He says, I didn't have time, I need time. Okay, and it was granted to him. And this happened on more than one occasion. The chairman, in granting that, didn't confront him or anything else. Okay, that's fine. It's not a time issue. So he did not give that same courtesy to the clerk. The clerk was trying to do the job that he was elected to do. And all he was requesting was time to consult with the auditor and with the county attorney to clarify some questions that he had. You asked if he had, who he had contacted. Well, who he contacted was irrelevant. In 2 hours, I mean, I've tried to call commissioners. And I can, usually I get if you answer your phone, you'll talk to me. But if it goes to your answer machine, it may be a little bit later. Sometimes not. But just your attitude towards the clerk, and I understand the passion and all of that. But your own statement that you made, and I'm looking at the minutes, you stated that you would have a vote on the issue this afternoon, and it appeared the clerk was asking for a delay in the vote so that he had time to research the issue. the same thing that you have asked for as a new commissioner. But you didn't want to give him that courtesy.
I wanted him to answer the question if that's what he was wanting me to do. I don't think he ever did.
No, he did, in, later on.
He asked us
The
not to take a vote
issues-
on it?
The clerk clarified that if there were issues with the agreement after speaking with the county's auditor, he would not be able to make payment until the issue was rectified. He was informing you of what the issue in front of you were, or in front of him was. But your statement just says, basically, you're going to vote this afternoon, irregardless of what anybody else said or did. You were kind of, ramming it through, just like you were talking about. There's a process that needs to be followed. But to get onto the clerk the way you did in public does not speak real well of you. And like I say, the passion took over. But I sat there in shock. I've never seen a chairman of this county commission attack someone like you did.
You have your opinion, Mr.
Yeah.
Hancock, and I have mine. I mean, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with you. What your thoughts are. I don't have no disrespect for that. I don't have no disrespect for the clerk. But I do have a job to do, and I have to try to do the best I can. And sometimes if $2.5 million a year is important to me, I have to try to make it happen.
$600,000 important to you? There was a solar plant or facility that wanted to come in here. This commission voted it down. Its tax revenue would have been $600,000 plus per year.
Right?
Y'all decided you didn't want that. And those people, and the sole reason that I was getting out of that conversation was y'all were against it because the company from North Carolina didn't come down here and hold public meetings with everybody that was concerned out there. You were not chairman at that time. But that was, it was a 5-0 vote. So throw it away. Made no sense to me.
This vote was 5-0 too.
Yeah, I understand. Anyway, I just wanted to get that off my chest.
No, that's fine. I appreciate your comments. Constructive criticism is what I call it. At this time, we will,
Mr. Chairman, I think you got somebody else.
oh, did I have somebody else wanting to speak on this matter? Okay. Yes, ma'am. Welcome. Just name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Lisa Owens. My address is 8869 137th Road, Live Oak, Florida, 32060. So I have a question, I guess, maybe not a concern, but just a question. For True Leave, it is a marijuana plant. Here in Suwannee County, we incarcerate so many people for a blunt, right? Which therefore means now they have a background. A background stops them from working for True Leave. So you want to gain 300 people in this county to work for a company that also has a plant in Lee, Florida, and has a plant in Monticello, Florida. We don't have the population. We first need to know the backgrounds that they don't accept. And at this point, drugs is one of them. Most of the people that live in this county have that as an issue. 300 people are not nearly, I don't care what percent you put on the employment, they're not coming from this county, which therefore means employment is not, that company is not employable for the people who live here. I don't understand how a county who is contingent upon putting people behind bars for marijuana is now going to bring a marijuana plant here to be able to employ 300 people that they can't employ. So I guess that's more of my concern, and that's not necessarily a question, but yeah, I just, for the life of me, don't understand that part.
I appreciate your comments. Did I have anybody else on this? Seeing none, we will, I'll close public comment for this item. We'll move forward got item 23. We didn't have any additional agenda items? Okay. At this time, I will open public comment for anything. Do I have anyone wishing to speak on any matters? I thought I had. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Linda Owens, and I am coming as a citizen to you tonight.
Your address, please.
My address is 1602 8th Street Southwest, Live Oak, Florida. I'm not coming as a city councilwoman. I'm coming as a resident, as someone's concerned about an issue. My issue is about the Douglas Center, and I've got to get kudos to Mr. Council Fleming. Commissioner Fleming. I don't want to call you counselor. Commissioner Fleming, he's done a great job, and all of you, kudos to you too, and to the Park and Recreation, and to each and every one, as well as the Douglas Alumni Center. I have concerns about that particular area over there, that park. I'm going to call it a park. This is what I've been told. And you stress that parks are where it begins. Well, apparently, it's not over at the Douglas Center, because there's nothing there. So there's no beginning. There's nothing there that the children or the people have to look forward to. There's nothing there. There's a little 10-cent climbing thing, and then there's the addition you put on is awesome. The pavilion is awesome, but guess what? We can't use the pavilion, because why? Your bathrooms are locked. So we can't go there and use the pavilion during the day or during the time because they're locked. The gym, joke, the gym is open certain hours. Thank you, Sheriff, for Pal being there. But then it gets to be the point where how do you expect for it to be a park? And I know that you have things that's coming. And Lord, please let me live to see some of it. But I know you're in the process of doing things over there. But the thing that I want to get to tonight is that I'm a little concerned that, and Commissioner Fleming and I talked about it, and he explained it to me, and others I've spoken with. But how can you charge people to use that pavilion over there, and there's nothing there? So you're going to say you're going to charge me for every 2 hours a certain fee to use the pavilion. But what is it there? Only thing you have is the outside pavilion, bathrooms that are locked. So I guess if they're going to unlock the bathroom, that's what they're charging you for. But why? Why are you charging people to come over there and do that? There's nothing there. I can go over to, what is it called, sports complex. I can go over there. I can use that pavilion. I can use those bathrooms anytime I want to. They're open. I can go over to I call it the rec center off of, what is it called? John Hills Park. That facility is open. But over at the Douglas Center, you can't use that nice pavilion. You can't use that nice pavilion that you built. And it's gorgeous. Thank you guys very much for it. It is nice. But my thing is, why can't we do something to leave it open to entice the children to come over there until you get these buildings together? But I stopped and asked, and I've been asking around in the neighborhood, how do you guys feel about, hosting something over there? Because if you put this building over there, we want people to come to it. Am I correct? You don't want this nice building and it's empty. Because why? You have no one to come to it. So you've got to start giving people something to come over there to enjoy it with. But if they can't use your bathroom, then wow. And you're charging me by the hour to come over there to pavilion that there's nothing there but just the pavilion. And I just can't see it. And to know, and I can go over to other places and use them free. So why are you charging? My question to you is, and I know you have to charge, and there's no big issue about that part. You have to charge if you want to reserve it. But during the day, and it says open from dark to dusk. From what it's to dusk is when it shuts down. Why can't people go out there and have picnics? Why can't you go out there to take your family out there and play kickball or whatever? Or why can't the children go out there and play in the afternoons? Because, see, lots of children don't want to be in the gym playing basketball all day. So if you want to go outside, why can't after hours, when it's closed, that's what I thought it was going to be. It was going to be a recreational area. There's no parks over there on that side of town. But then they can't even use the bathroom. And God forbid, and I have to be honest with you, yes, I've seen boys, but what about girls? What are you doing in the afternoon? And if you walk through there, and you remember you got lots of children, there's a project homes over there, there's a housing facilities over there. Those kids can't come over there and play. They can't play. They have to do what? They have to run home to use the bathrooms. So my question is, why? Just why do you have to pay if it's not reserved, and I want to go over there and have something just to hang out, that I've got, and there's no bathrooms open? Why can't the bathrooms stay open over there? And why do people have to pay until you get something over there, until there's something presentable over there? I don't see why people have to pay to use the Douglas Center. I'm not talking about the gym. I'm just talking about that nice pavilion that you built. Mr. Fleming, it's nice. Thank you. But that nice pavilion that you have out there, why do people have to pay to use that? What's back there for them to use?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Fleming.
Mr. Scott, will you come to the podium, please? I did tell you, Ms. Owens, that was under Parks and Rec. And to talk to Greg Scott, back when we set the rates and we talked about this issue, as well as the gentleman out there, he didn't understand. This is what I want for you to understand, for you to know, that when anybody can go out there and use that facility, the bathrooms are locked. They are absolutely locked, but you can have entries through the gymnasium. Through that gymnasium, when that gymnasium is open. But I think any county-owned facility, you got to have a protocol. And the protocol is, if someone go out there and get hurt, injured, Parks and Rec know who's out there. When you reserve that facility out there, Parks and Rec know who's out there at all times. Someone get hurt, injured, they want to sue the county. First thing I would say, I didn't know any, I wasn't aware, which I don't have any dealings with the reservations, is through Parks and Rec. When people call me and say, can we use it? Yeah, you can use it. Call Parks and Rec. Because if you reserve that pavilion out there, somebody else just walk out there and say, I want to come out here too. You got to have order in everything. I feel like that the way it's handled, or the way it was handled through Parks and Rec, that you got to have some order. If you're out there using the facility, I bring my family out there and say, no, I'm here too. I bring my family. Well, that's why we have it through Parks and Rec. They know who's out there at all times. Now, I want to ask you this. What bathrooms on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon that you can use at John Hill Park, other than renting the building? You got to rent the building. The bathrooms outside. But you got bathrooms outside over there, Greg?
You got a porta potty.
Porta potty.
Porta potties, okay. Porta potties, okay. It's the bathroom.
Well,
Okay, go over to Silas Drive. Sports complex.
sports complex. You have bathrooms out there. You got porta potties.
We got restrooms there.
Yeah, and do you reserve it?
No, it's open to the public.
Okay. There's no problem with opening the bathroom. You just have to be told that someone.
Shut them down.
Yeah, you just have to be told that someone wanna use the facility.
No. Not that they want to use it. I'm saying when the children are out there, when people go out there to play, and then,
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yes, sir.
Because I think it really comes down to staffing.
Yeah.
The presence of staffing on the property. At the Douglas Center, we don't have anyone staffed over there unless the PAL program is open, the gymnasium is open. But over at the Sportsplex, Greg, do you have people over there throughout the day? There's the difference. I can tell you, when those other buildings were out there before we took them down, kids were getting into all kinds of trouble going inside buildings, doing things they shouldn't be doing. We can't leave that building open with those restrooms with the opportunity for children to go in there and potentially get in big trouble. And I've been to court over children getting in trouble over there before at the Douglas Center, but we don't have that problem now. We've got the restrooms locked because we don't have staffing there. When the plans that we've all looked at over many, many years now finally begin to get developed as we are able to fund those improvements, at some point it may get to where we can have staffing over there and then unlock those. But otherwise, Greg, my assumption is you're only unlocking them if reservations are made. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Well, that might,
Okay, well, here's my question though. You're saying staffing, it's what, 6 o'clock, it gets dark? So, yeah, I'm not a sports person, but I know, I've seen that Mr. Cherry and, they're there at the Douglas Center. So, with Pal, so instead of, if they're there, why not, the bathrooms are open in the back?
if they have to come in through the front, then Mr. Cherry and whomever else is inside managing
open
that
on the inside.
facility
Oh, Lord.
can get to them.
Mr. Cherry to come through, open it.
Well, I can tell you this, I've been to a mall with my wife before. She'll walk a mile inside the mall to go to the restroom. So to ask these children to walk around the building, come in the front door to go to the potty, most of them won't have a problem with that.
Yes, but do they have to do that over at, do they have to do that over the other parks? That's my question.
I don't have any
I
idea.
feel like you're legally raping us when you tell me that I've got to go inside a gym and ask Mr. Cherry, Mr. Robinson, to open the bathroom so I can go use the bathroom when the facility is right there.
Hold on.
I
Let me
don't
help.
think you're fair.
Let me help her out. So I am a baseball mom. I am a soccer mom. I am a football mom. I'm an everybody mom. So I'm constantly at all of these parks. At Solace Oaks, we can go out there on a Sunday. There's not one employee out there at all, but those bathrooms are open. You know why? Because it's used for everybody. There's no specific type people that go to Solace Oaks. Solace Oaks is open for everybody. So the bathrooms are definitely open. There's not one employee out there. So if trouble was gonna be had, it was gonna be had anyway, regardless of if there's an employee there or if there's not an employee. If kids wanted to get into trouble, they're gonna get into trouble. You could be standing there watching them, they're still gonna get into trouble. The problem is, you didn't give that neighborhood, that district, anything for those children to do. That district has a lot of kids. But if this county does not give these kids something to do, they're gonna constantly be in trouble. They're gonna constantly keep doing things that they're not supposed to do. So at what point do we as adults start saying, we need to start focusing our minds on these kids and start giving them activities, giving them places to go so that they can run and let go of some of this energy? Over in that neighborhood, you got an iron bar. There's no swing, there's no slide, there's no nothing. Those kids are literally, that playground that you guys, or whoever, I don't give a darn who it was, Greg, Scott, Greg, Clayton, Greg, whoever, put over there in that district is the most ridiculous park I have ever seen in my life, to the point where the kids don't even want to play on it. So if you don't give kids a swing, you don't give them a slide, you only give them an iron bar to crawl across or to climb across, and there's nothing else, they kind of want to do something else. So if they want to go out there and play kickball, they want to go out there and play flag football, and there's no facilities for them to use, now you're pushing them over to Solace Oaks, because that's where we're going. We're going over there, we're going inside those gates, where they put this nice AstroTurf. So now we're tearing up your AstroTurf, and now that becomes a problem, and now you're sending the police department out there to tell us to get off your AstroTurf, but if you had to just open the bathroom at the Douglas Center, where we had all this open field, where we could happily play in our neighborhood, where these kids could walk to these fields, you have no problem, but you're setting them up for failure every time. Because now you got the police department out there, and it becomes a big commotion, and it's this big to-do. You won't put a basketball, well, I'm sorry, you did put a basketball goal over at John Hill Park, but you won't put one at Solace Oaks. And I was told it's because it draws the wrong kind of crowd. So again, they don't have a bathroom to use at John Hill. They have a porta potty to use in a time of COVID. we have a porta potty with all of these homeless people that use these porta potties, but you're sending these kids in there to use them. So her complaint is not, just be fair around the board. Give these kids in this neighborhood, white, black, purple, green, and blue. That neighborhood is mixed with a lot of people. Those kids want to go somewhere and play as well. Places that they can walk to, and their parents feel safe sending them so that they can look out and watch them in these fields play with a bathroom that's open for them to use. For them to have to walk back across town to go, or walk back 6 streets to go to the bathroom is ridiculous. That's all she's saying. So I just came up here so that I can help her out with this, because she had started rambling, so
Thank you.
I'm helping.
Thank you,
Mr.
thank you,
Scott,
ladies, for
Mr.
your
Scott,
comments.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Scott, wasn't you supposed to, other things coming out there to the Douglas
Yeah.
Center?
Let's take a step back. The First Oil Sportsplex didn't happen overnight. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and donations and grants that made that facility happen. That's called a community park. The Douglas Center is a neighborhood park. That takes time also to get things together. We had a short turnaround time to get the playground that we put in. Our plans is to take next phase of the grant we just received to add to that. We haven't said anything, but we've got some promise of some local donations, sizable, that we're going to do some things. The commission also set aside $35,000 that we did out of the, internally to make improvements in McAlpin into Douglas Center. We want to do all these at the same time. So in the next several months, we'll get started on that and start making some improvements. We can certainly experiment and try to make the restrooms more accessible. This is the first I've heard, and communications are where it starts. I appreciate the Owens ladies that are willing to speak up and say a few things, but we can certainly experiment, but we've done this before other places. Bathrooms can be the worst nightmare you have anywhere. All it takes, it can be crystal clean, and one bad rabbit makes it nasty for everybody else. We can experiment and try to do that. That's what we had to do at Hale Park. As those negative activities happen there, we got a porta potty to serve the immediate need, and the bathroom's in really bad shape, that we're trying to work with the city to get that redone. But if it's the wishes of the commission, we can certainly work toward trying to find a resolution with the restroom. I know Mr. Cherry, we've got a better relationship with him, and ask him about opening. We've got a part-time gentleman that opens and closes gates and restrooms and facilities for us now. But let us staff work through the issues or perceived issues, whatever the case may be, and try to get this resolved and move forward. But there are things in the plans. We haven't forgot about any child. I'm glad they're using the sportsplex because it is up and running, but we want the Douglas Center to be a very similar facility when we get done there also. So glad to answer other questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Thank you.
At this time, seeing no one else wishes to speak, we'll close public comment. I'm sorry. Yeah. What?
Moses Klepper, I reside at 14581 102nd Path, Live Oak.
Welcome.
I appreciate you guys, what y'all do. I've been on boards, and I know it's usually criticism, not always constructive. So mine just input. I'm sitting back here listening. This is my county now. I hadn't been here long, but there's a few things I want to address, and then I'd like to ask the question. Since I've been coming here, and what prompted me to first start coming here is the issue at the fire station out there. Seemed like the taxpayers, I know y'all ain't supposed to talk about it, but I'm using this to piggyback on another concern. sound like the taxpayer, somehow we got slipped through the crack, and we're gonna have to pay at least, what I'm understanding, about 100 grand if we keep the back 10 acres of that 20-acre tract. We're gonna have to pay about 100 grand to get a driveway. The person who purchased the front part of that tract has got road frontage, commercial property for the same 68,000 we paid, that we're gonna have to pay minimal 168,000 to have access to our property. Somehow or another, that fell through the crack. That's on somebody's back here, or somebody's back here. The other thing, just a more recent meeting, it sounds like with the bid set up for the tractors and the equipment, it sounded like somehow or another about $200,000 got slipped through the cracks on the structure of the bid package. And my limited knowledge, again, I'm not criticizing, I'm probably the most frugal person here, and it pains me to see money wasted, especially when I have a part of it, you know? Mr. Futch threw out there at the end, I couldn't quite completely follow. I understand Ring Power had the lowest bid, but it seemed like the actual ask from the individual in the county that set up the bid package, it wasn't even feasible, you know? The horsepower that was requested wasn't a feasible thing, and he even admitted, to the best of my knowledge, that he put it out there intentionally to be not a direct question or a direct bid package. So, but according to Mr. Futch now, he said that if we had set up, if our employee with the county had broken that bid package up in a different way, that there could have been $200,000 saved. Now, I understand y'all went with it because of the integrity of the bid, and I fully understand and appreciate that. But maybe whoever set up that bid package, which I don't honestly know who does that, but I'm sure they're salaried. I'm sure they get paid to act in the best interest of this county, that they could have, I mean, when I go, I'm pretty sure all of us here are concerned with money coming out of our personal pockets. So when we go to make a substantial purchase, we do some checking. I do a lot of checking, you know. I'm not opposed to going out of state to do some checking on prices for substantial purchases. And what I'm throwing out there is maybe this individual or that department can do some of that bidding on, you know, privately on their own or through the department, but not official, and find out if we do that bid package in a different way. That's 30-something%, I believe, all right, that we potentially lost by not utilizing Mr. Futch's aspect, you know, by what he had, and I'm just going off the top of what I heard, and then maybe Ring Power for the rest of it. Now, I can't imagine a big corporation saying, "Oh no, I'm only going to do the deal if I get 700,000. I ain't going to do the deal if I only get 400,000." I don't think that's going to run them off, you know. So I just like to throw that out there. I kind of have watched in the last, I don't know, I've only been coming here since I heard about the fire station thing, but about 6 months maybe, I've heard of maybe 300,000 that we let slip through the cracks by not doing, you know, pre-work, you know, possibly. So, and I'm not looking for a job, all right? It's just, in it minimum, or at most, constructive criticism. Again, I mean, but again, if we lost 30% on that tractor deal, equipment deal, that's substantial, you know, even in this weird time. And one of the other thing I've noticed, I come from a county that I watched grow from, I think it was 45,000, about what we are now, to over 300,000. All right, and that was 39 years. All right, but I left that county because it's the infrastructure no longer supports it. It is probably the nicest town in this state, you know, St. Augustine, and people think I'm nuts from leaving. But what I moved there for 40 years ago now is no longer there, you know, and the county commission actually is mostly responsible for that, for letting the growth just explode, and that the cannabis user who was up here earlier, he hit on a little bit of that. You know, what attracted me to Suwannee County was its podunk, what I call it, atmosphere. The small, that's very attractive to me, you know? And I'm not a 20-year-old aspiring to be all this, you know, but please, y'all, focus on some of that, you know, that realize that what y'all have here, I could have went anywhere to retire. I chose this county because it's small, you know, and I'd hate, so I'm asking for selective growth, you know, just be aware, not any and everything just for that buck, because, you know, so I said enough about that. Good, but I did wrote a note here. Do y'all enjoy going to Lake City? You know, I personally don't. I go over there when you know, a couple times a month for necessities and all, but I get away from there pretty much as quick as I can. And when I go back to St. Augustine once a month, I go over there on a Sunday, and the traffic is so bad, man. I just really get reminded why I'm here, you know? So, and then the last thing, y'all probably not gonna like even less than those other things, not that y'all like them, but I'm ignorant on the amount. I wasn't aware, as much of y'all do, and goes on here, I'm ignorant of, but the credit card, is that a $20,000 limit for each commissioner?
No,
That's
sir.
for a total, is that a?
That's,
It's one card.
it's one card that the office has.
I've been asking for unlimited, but so far they haven't approved it.
We don't have a credit card. I don't have a credit card.
That's for the office of the
Correct.
county commissioners.
Say if we go out of town and we have meetings that we have to attend and stay overnight, the office staff can line up those things, and you have to have a credit card to be able to do rooms and things of that nature. That's what it's used for,
Okay,
or partially what it's used for.
may I ask what the previous limit was?
I
Or
don't,
if it was 10, 5?
5,000.
The problem was, we had some commissioners, if they got there early, could get a room, and the rest of them had to sleep in the parking lot. The truth is, here's what really happens, though. Yes, it is used for reserving rooms for commissioners for these events they have to go to with the Association of Counties, but we also buy other office supplies from time to time that we have to order online, and they want a credit card number as well. So depending on when we've ordered something, when they're trying to get to an event, it was running into a problem.
But was it necessary then to jump it, 4 times? Is that right? Yeah, 4 times?
Well, there's less chance that we're going to run into some of the problems that we've experienced, and we have run into issues.
Okay. My one little incident with a board having, there was 2 officers on the board I was on that had, they had their own, 2 officers had the card, all right? And I don't remember the limit. It wasn't 20 grand, or it wasn't even 5 grand probably. But those, y'all don't carry them around, and I'm not trying to imply anything here, but I watched it firsthand, and I was involved with getting $32,500 back that one of the board members embezzled over a 6-year period, you know, out of a trust thing. So it just beware, that's all, and thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, do I have anyone else wishing to speak? Seeing none, I'll close public comment at this time. We'll go to closing comments. Mr. Pravat, anything further?
Nothing further, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Harris.
Mr. Chairman, there's something that I didn't want to speak up because you had already taken about half a dozen comments earlier about this whole issue with TrueLeave, but there's some things I want to say, and most specifically, I just want to read some excerpts out of what I call the Economic Development Statute, and I want to do it publicly so those people sitting at home watching this will understand what the statute actually authorizes the board to do. So I'm going to circulate a copy of this and then read a few excerpts for you. And let me just say that, first of all, that it was wonderful working with the representatives of TrueLeave that we worked with, and I'm not going to speak for Mr. Pravat, but he handled our piece of the agreement and the participation with their attorneys. I can tell you that I was here years ago when the Glossner project was being considered.
Logan, you need my copy. Logan, you need my copy for the record.
I've got another copy here, Logan. George, I'll read that to you when we're. I've got the version with the pictures.
Oh, boy.
All right, Mr. Harris, I apologize. I just wanted, we had extras on them to be able to see it.
So years ago, I dealt with the sawmill company, Klossner. And Mr. Pravat actually came in on the very tail end of that, and I was thankful when he arrived. But I can tell you that in my dealings with that company, it was entirely different. It was always just how much more we could do and we could give and we could continue to promise to give. And they had a long list of demands for that sawmill out there. And we have probably spent $20 million working on that list of demands of Klossner. Thankfully, that wasn't all local money. Commissioner Fleming will tell you that back when I started that, I had a head full of hair. But we had to go get grants. We had to beg for money and run back and forth to Tallahassee, and that's what we had to do to accomplish what we've done. And we're just now trying to finish out there with the rail crossing and the new road, 175th. But $20 million, and there wasn't a lot of questioning about what was going on and where's the money going to come from and how's it going to be spent or anything else. But now, we get a good company come along that says, you know something, we'll come to the table and we'll work with you to get what we need. Their issue was a short timeline. And while I think it's been explained quite thoroughly now why we were meeting, it wasn't for a land use change or a zoning change or whether or not they could be allowed to come here. But the issue on the utilities specifically boiled down to, through talking to the contractor that was doing our underground utilities out there in that area, we actually got to the point of talking to vendors that supplied the materials. And it required a phone call to manufacturers that supplied the materials, the pipe, and the sizes that we needed. And all of the manufacturers were telling us that it could be the end of September before we could have that pipe. Well, that wasn't going to work because they needed the utilities sooner than that. And we finally had one manufacturer that stepped up and said, well, if you will let me know in a week, within a week, we'll try to manufacture that pipe and have it to you by the end of July, which was better than the end of September, which is what we'd been told. That then became the urgency, trying to hustle, get the decision made. We actually tried to have the meeting the week before by that Friday. And Mr. Pravat had been working with the other attorneys, and we just couldn't get the agreement finished. So Mr. Pravat and I had spoken the night before this board met. Late that night, he had been working on it. When we got off the phone, he had to call them back. The next morning, we had another meeting, a conference call in my office with the chairman and Mr. Pravat and myself. And we went back through the agreement and the conditions. And we were trying desperately to get this deal done because we weren't pulling the trigger on ordering the materials until we absolutely knew we had a signed agreement. So we finally got one, and I was thankful for that. And I was also thankful that they agreed to come to the table with $750,000 to put toward the utilities, and that isn't going to pay for all of it. We are using some other funds to get to the other side of I-10, but that was certainly enough to help springboard this project and focus our attention in that area, because we have another area that we've been trying to get utilities as well. So it's been a huge help. The $750,000 and the plan to pay it back to them over 10 years is not unusual. I will apologize that I could barely speak when we had that meeting. I had laryngitis. All I could do was barely get a squeak out. But I had worked on these types of arrangements before with the refund when a company reimburses in economic development programs. That happens fairly common. I've always called it a refund on the advance, or a refundable advance, for the party that puts the money up front. Of the $750,000 that they offered to bring to the table, if you simply followed the schedule that we have in our utility schedule, they would have had to pay less than $100,000 in the impact fees, period, with the anticipation that we would take the utilities there. But in this case, they brought $750,000 to the table because when that gentleman asked me if I could meet the timeline, I said, I believe I can, but I don't have any money. He said, how much is it going to cost? I said, I'll call you back tomorrow. And I spoke to our engineers, and we got an estimate of probable cost, and I called and gave it to them. They said, okay, we'll write the check. So I was very thankful for that, and I'm extremely thankful that we're working with a company that didn't come in here with a long laundry list of demands like we had before. But specifically, I want to speak to, because I'm afraid this will come up again. I pray that every commissioner up here has a passion to bring more jobs here and good companies here and those that don't have a negative impact on the community. But I'm also concerned that we could still have future questions about whether or not there's the authority, that the board has the authority to do what the board needs to do. So I wanted to read excerpts from the statute. It's the one that Mr. Powell referred to earlier. And I didn't like putting Mr. Powell in that position, to be quite frank with you, to come in and ask. And he said clearly, he's not an attorney. But he was gracious enough to come and say that based on his read of that statute, there's not a problem with the board doing what they're going to do. In fact, you may recall that several months back when we were talking about the CARES Act funding, I did not put him in that position of trying to offer an opinion to the board. I called Neighbors Giblin and got legal counsel on that and got their opinion and shared it with him and Mr. Baker and their staff over there before I came to the board and we discussed it. Chapter 125.045, County Economic Development Powers, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to read a few excerpts. The legislature finds and declares that this state faces increasing competition from other states and other countries for the location and retention of private enterprises within its borders. Furthermore, the legislature finds that there is a need to enhance and expand economic activity in the counties of this state. The last sentence in that first section, the legislature declares that it is necessary and in the public interest to facilitate the growth and creation of business enterprises in the counties of the state. Subsection 2, and I'm going to emphasize this, it is the governing body of the county that has this authorization. The governing body of a county may expend public funds to attract and retain business enterprises, and the use of public funds toward the achievement of such economic development goals constitutes a public purpose. The provisions of this chapter, which confer powers and duties on the governing body of a county, including any powers not specifically prohibited by law, which can be exercised by the governing body of a county, and this will cause some of you to break out in a rash, must be liberally construed in order to effectively carry out the purposes of this section. So when most of you are thinking your typical business approach to how you're doing things, they're saying, oh, wait a minute. We want you to liberally construe this. And it uses language in here that unless it's prohibited by law, we weren't proposing doing anything that was prohibited by law at all in that meeting. For the purposes of this section, it constitutes a public purpose to expend public funds for economic development activities, including, but not limited to, developing or improving local infrastructure, issuing bonds to finance or refinance the cost of capital projects for industrial or manufacturing plants, leasing or conveying or gifting land. And that's what we did with Klossner. I think it was 120 acres we gave them, leasing or conveying real property and making grants to private enterprises for the expansion of businesses existing in the community or the attraction of new businesses to the community. And again, I'm not going to read the balance of it, but I just want to say this, because it could easily come up again the next time we're talking about another company or another agreement. The question of, well, what authority do you have to do this? You've got all the authority. And it's to be liberally construed according to this section in Chapter 125. So I applaud you for doing what you did and what I hope that you do in the future. I've had my own reservations in the past, but I expressed those in the board meeting. Commissioner Fleming was there when I talked about that company years ago, and I had lots of reservations about it, but they were very specific. They were very narrowly tailored because I had spoken to the board in a workshop in advance in that particular case years ago with that sawmill. And I asked the board, we're going to go through these 10 items and you're going to vote. I want y'all to vote on these items because then I'm going to go try to negotiate in this contract. And if they get kicked out, they're not, Randy's ideas aren't getting kicked out. It'll be the commissioner's ideas. Isn't that what I said? And I mean, it was a constant battle until it was completely finished. We didn't experience that this time, and I'm very thankful for that. While I was out of town over the weekend, I saw a True Leave sign. They've apparently got locations all over the state where they distribute the products. So I'm thankful to have a company here that doesn't have a negative impact on our community, and I'm thankful for their participation and going way beyond what anything that they even needed to do. And I hope that we attract more businesses. Do I have concerns with the labor force? Absolutely. But I think going forward, and I don't disagree with the woman that talked about a lot of people having this record of using drugs in the past. But you know something? If they're here for a long time, they might help establish that benchmark or that standard in the community where people say, you know something, if I want to be employed in the future, I'm going to stay off that stuff to make sure that I've got a clean employment record. And they will get the people, the type of people that they need. And I hope that it's going to be advantageous for us for a long time in the future. The one other thing that I wanted to mention about specifically the site is that those of you that visited the other sites, they are secured sites. They have fencing up. They've got armed security guards out there, and they take their business very serious. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know I took a lot longer than probably I should have.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Commissioner White, closing comments.
Just a couple of things. We went down the fact last week, and that was pretty enlightening. Got to meet a lot of people that you usually don't get to talk to. So it was very helpful for me as a new commissioner. Also, I hope I didn't give anybody heartburn over the whole budget thing there. Just want to try to save money is where I'm at with that. And I'd like to say that I'm glad as a board we approved the whole True Leave thing, and I'm real proud of that. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Commissioner Fleming.
I'm going to use your word. Passionate. The reason why I say passionate, gentleman that spoke from St. Augustine, I'm proud that you moved to Suwannee County. But I'm not proud that my kids have to leave to go find a job. I got 2 that's away, that's got 7 of my grandchildren that I can't see every day. They had to get out of here to go get a job. This is what we're all about. Randy, you just read that about the legislature declares that it is necessary in the public interest to facilitate the growth and creation of business enterprises in counties of the state. I'm a 5th generation. I'm a family of 10, 5 boys, 5 girls, work hard. 64 years old. And I'm very grateful and I'm thankful for this county and for this community that we try to reach out and facilitate jobs for this community, which is badly needed. Education, medical, hospitals, in order to have a nice community to live in. But just to shut the doors to companies that would come in here, we don't have General Motors, we don't have Ford Motor Company, Chrysler, the other name brands, the Ring Powers over in St. Augustine. We don't have the big fancy hotel that I stayed in last week, which is needed. So I can't shut the door to jobs while I'm on this board that have interest in coming to Suwannee County, and because I love this county, and I thank these guys, these communities, these commissioners for, I love these guys. We work together. We do things together. Our previous board was working together, but we do things now together. And I think we have a level of understanding the type of jobs that would come to this community. But have take up for this county and this community because I have passion for my children and my grandchildren, that they don't have to get out of here and go find a job. If those jobs close, what they're gonna come back to? Nothing. So we have to have some type of facility for them in order to live. We got generations that's coming. I think we have a nice community. No, we don't have a Jacksonville, nor a Miami. I'm proud of that. But we have a Suwannee County that we try to make it good to encompass for everybody. Chairman, I'm through.
Thank you, sir.
Took your word.
It's all good.
But I'll be like the linebacker over here.
Commissioner Land.
I just echo what those guys say, not to keep beating on the True Leaf thing, but there was one component that nobody's mentioned yet, and I learned this from them. There's 3 processes to True Leaf's business model, and that's grow, process, and retail, distribute. The Department of Health regulates them, and none of those 3 processes can occur on the same piece of property. And I don't think within so many feet of different properties. So what I'm saying is the property that they chose here is strictly a grow house, grow facility, grow, whatever they call it. They're only going to be growing. They won't be processing. They won't be retailing. All that'll be shipped out of here to a different place and then distributed to their retail site. So I just wanted to mention that to you guys. I don't think anybody mentioned that. Not to keep pounding on the True Leaf. I think we've beat that to death, but I did, it was a 5-0, and I think this entire board, we've all said it in different ways, supported that project for one reason or another. But like Commissioner White said and Commissioner Fleming, we both attended FAC last week. That's Florida Association of Counties, for the public that doesn't know what that stands for. And they give out, they do different classes and workshops throughout the day to educate us commissioners on what other counties are seeing and what's coming from the federal level, the state level, and it was very enlightening. We learned a lot on the $15 an hour thing. Got some information there that we probably wouldn't have received anywhere else so quickly. So that was good. 4th of July weekend, I hope everybody had a great holiday and was safe, and we should continue to thank our veterans for that. I don't think they get thanked enough for defending that liberty that we all take for granted. We got a storm coming. Hope everybody goes home, buckles down. I want to thank our staff for preparing that. We had a meeting this morning at 9:30 at the EOC, and our staff every day. I mean, we got an awesome group of folks that work for this county every day. But I just thank this board for being open-minded to us new guys and some of the ideas that we bring forward. Yeah, sometimes we're learning, but I appreciate you guys being open-minded and at least listening and being receptive to sometimes bad ideas.
It's all good.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No, sir, I'm good.
Okay. Commissioner Hill.
I wanted to bring Jimmy Norris back up here and talk about something. I know y'all gonna kill me if I do. But I do want Jimmy to come up here. But as you're making your way up here, I do want to say, Mr. Moses, he lives in my district, and I will tell you, I found him. And if you want to find him, you better be looking for him, because he's way back in there. But I did enjoy our conversation the first time I met him. I'm glad he's coming to the meetings. I'm glad him and his wife are being involved, and not to put you on the spot or beat up on you. I know Mr. Fleming talked about it. And you dressed up. Y'all, I won't talk about that yet. But it's a double-edged sword for us up here. I mean, he touched on it when I was campaigning the first time around. It was a horrible joke, and people didn't mean nothing by it, but they said our greatest export was our children. And, that didn't sit well with me, and I don't think it sat well with any of the folks up here. And so, we have to balance folks like yourself wanting to retire and be part of our community, and we want you here, but we also want to try to create some jobs that can keep our folks here at home and pay better and have benefits and things of that nature. So we're going to put it on a scale, and we're going to keep it and weigh it out. We're definitely not going to, in my opinion, ever be a Jacksonville or Gainesville, whatever you said. I don't want no part of that. But with that being said, Mr. Norris over here has got a different opinion on that, being our economic director, and he's steady working hard. But I appreciate him, what he's doing. So
Jobs, right?
that's right.
3 minutes.
Just real quick, I just want to talk about,
What do you want to talk?
I want you to talk about our meeting with the rail company,
Oh, okay.
because we've not had the best, I shouldn't say it like that. Maybe the previous owners didn't work with us as easily, maybe, should I say?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Mr. Harris can testify to that, and just like the rail spur out there that we've mentioned and how difficult that is, the crossing. CSX, I think, Florida Gulf and Atlantic was half price or so on the.
I could write a book on the differences.
Absolutely, yep.
Yeah.
But
Huge
just saying that, the difference is like Florida Gulf and Atlantic, they were in town the other day. Be sure I say her name right, Miss Cassie Dole, which is the chief commercial officer. She's like the person that runs the train. And Jeff Goucher, who's kind of our marketing person, director, economic development guy. But they were out at Bender Holtz, and, you know, they're looking at progress out there and some future stuff, and so it's all good. But while they were here, they stopped in, and Commissioner Hale was able to meet with us, and you know, it was just good. And we told them that to literally, I can talk to you, I can call you, you come here and sit in my office. So they were real excited about Suwannee County. They're excited about our Catalyst site, as well as we talked about other possibilities of maybe some future stuff. But they're all about helping. And, you know, it was a great conversation, one that I've never been able to have with the previous owners. And like I said, I know Mr. Harris deals with that a lot. So when you can literally call the person that runs the company, and you can get something done.
And they're anxious to work with us moving forward. Is any new company you have that may need rail access, I mean, it's not like jumping through hoops to get someone on the phone to talk to. They're there.
Yeah, and we're, you know, obviously our spur out there now is being used, and so we're, you know, there's conversations about, obviously there has to be some changes and some expansion. As we grow out there, we're going to have to, everybody's going to have their own track, so to speak, out there. So, but it was a great conversation. We're glad they're here. They're good partners, and they made it clear that if we're ever working to bring a company into town, for us to please reach out to them if they need rail or can help in any way. And if there's a way for them to help find some dollars to help us, that they'll certainly be glad to try to do that. So.
Absolutely. And that's all I had.
Anything else?
Nope, that's it. And just want to say, hope your dad's better. I didn't realize till right before the meeting that he went back in the hospital, and now he's back out.
He had, I'll give you an update since you asked. I just don't like putting his business out there, but anyway, he got checked back into the hospital last Tuesday, a week ago today, and he was released for some complications, mostly lung related, but he got discharged yesterday afternoon, and he's back home now. Hopefully they got the kinks worked out this time.
Awesome. Awesome. Great news. Couple of things to finish up here. I want to touch on the meeting, and I want to acknowledge that I could understand after going back and looking at the meeting and us voting on this thing with True Leave, I could understand how the community can perceive it as us rushing something and not giving them the time, or not giving you all the time to research it. Can we do better at that next time? Absolutely. We're always about trying to do better. I don't have a problem in the world acknowledging that. From our side, the reason that it happened like it did is because we had been involved. When I sit back and look at it, we had been involved. I mean, we had been involved in it daily, especially, I know myself, Mr. Harris in the office, these guys had been involved from going and seeing the facility, but I mean, daily for 3 to 4 weeks with Jimmy Norris. I mean, and so maybe to myself, it just seemed like another day of doing business. But from your side, I can understand where it looked like, you know, okay, we just try to ram this thing through. We got to make it happen. But there was a lot of moving parts in that. So as we move forward, do we need to take a look at it and make sure when we present something that we try to look at it from the residents' perspective as well as ours before we present it? Absolutely. I don't have a problem in the world acknowledging that. Try to do better. This gentleman in the back that has concerns and saw and looking at the spending, I don't have a problem in the world acknowledging that we need to do better. When we're here, I don't think anybody on this board sits up here and thinks they know it all. I mean, this is a lot of this is learning to us. I mean, it's even not even talking about 2 new commissioners. I'm talking about us. We continue to learn. So there's always things we can look at. I take that and we use it to not get upset, but to try to do better. So I acknowledge that and appreciate your comments. Mr. Hancock, I appreciate your so-called passion for the county. You've been, unless you was ill, you've been at every meeting that I've been at on this board. So I have no problem with your criticism of what I done and how I done. Obviously, I got my thoughts on it. You have yours. I'm perfectly fine with that. I think you contribute to the meetings. I think you study. You put as much time in as most of the commissioners here, if not more. So I just want to leave this meeting today with you knowing I don't have an issue with, if you think I done something wrong, let me know. If you think some of these guys done something wrong, I've seen you let them know before too. I've seen you and Commissioner Gamble go at odds before. So I appreciate that and don't have a problem. The last thing I'm going to say on the subject, I've heard about it for 2 weeks, Mr. Baker. I have zero issue with Mr. Baker. Did I meet any disrespect to Mr. Baker? Absolutely not. I have a working relationship with him. I plan to keep that. Mr. Baker will be here soon with a budget, and a lot of times he comes and has needs and issues to help make his office better, and he asks, the board, if we can do this. I will always support Mr. Baker in his office and his employees. So I don't really have any other comment. I meant no disrespect to him. I was passionate in the meeting. I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to ask Mr. Baker to do the same thing, and if he's got an issue, he will certainly let me know, but my door is open and my phone's on to him, and I continue to move forward. I will speak up for him and say, and when he left, he was probably upset with me, and looking back at it, I can see his side, or I can see people that support his side. But I will say, when I got elected, Mr. Baker I got congratulations from people, but Mr. Baker actually called me to his office and sat down with me and spent some time. So he congratulated me and told me he thought I was going to do a good job. So I don't want to lose the respect of Mr. Baker. I appreciate that. I just want to move forward from this and have a working relationship with everyone in the county. With that being said, all I need is a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Have a motion by Commissioner Fleming.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Land. All in favor, say aye. Aye.